Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Anjali here, and today I will be showing you how to paint these 9 beautiful floral elements using watercolors. I'll be using this Real Value brush set from Princeton and the Tropicals color palette from Primer Marketing. I start by lightly sketching out the floral elements using my 2HB pencil. I love that the Tropicals palette has a range of beautiful vibrant colors which are perfect for florals. And so I have made all of these flowers very vibrant and very colorful. I'm sure you'll enjoy painting them. For the first flower, I start with the wet on wet technique using yellow as the base and then dropping in a little bit of the red on the edges. I also add some shadows and some details to the petals. So in the wet on wet technique, you basically apply a wash of paint on the paper, and before it dries up, you apply another layer of paint on top of it, which causes the two layers to blend and bloom. Paint blooms or bleeds are very interesting and they are totally unpredictable, which is kind of the fun of painting watercolors. When painting the leaves, leaving a little bit of white space creates some interest and depth to the leaves. If while painting your colors bleed into one another, you do not have to freak out. You can just pick up a paper towel and dab up the extra paint. After the flower has fully dried, I go back in and add some of the shadows and details to the petals using the tip of the brush. Since these brushes hold their point really well, they're excellent for details. Now for the next flower, I've chosen this beautiful bright pink color. After the first layer is half dry, I drop in some more saturated paint at the points where they meet the sepals. Now I paint the leaves using these jiggly motions which create these ragged edges for the leaves and they look very organic. Now using a darker color, I paint in the anthers and filaments of the flower. Next up are these tulip-shaped yellow flowers, and I have chosen this beautiful bright yellow for them. We will be painting them with teardrop-shaped leaves. The smaller size round brushes give you great control when painting details and fine leaves and branches like these because they really retain the point. When choosing brushes for watercolors, what you need to look for is that the brushes fibers are really soft, because the softer the fibers, the more water they absorb, and we need lots of water absorption for watercolor painting. So watercolor brushes are available in a wide variety of hair types, but they can be broadly divided into two. One is the synthetic hair brushes and the other is animal hair brushes. Generally, the animal hair brushes are considered far more superior and are a lot more expensive, but I have no experience with them, so I don't know and cannot comment on them, but I do know that you can find really great quality nylon brushes or synthetic brushes. All you need to look for is that they are really soft. The fiber is very soft when you touch them, and they hold a good point and they hold considerably good amount of water. When I paint these berries, I try to leave out a small tiny little spot of white on one of the sides. This gives it the look of light being reflected off of them and makes the berries look shiny. When mixing up colors, I like to add a little bit of the complementary color, in this case red or brown, to the green in order to give it a little more earthy or natural look. The next floral element is a little branch with these leaves and tiny little bright pink buds, little bit like hibiscus buds or rose flower buds. I paint the leaves with a little bit of vein in between by leaving a negative space. I paint the buds in with a really bright pink or magenta from the Tropicals palette. And I add the sepals and that's it. This is a really easy and pretty looking floral element. I like to use these in my floral compositions or floral wreaths. Next up, I'm painting these beautiful bluebells. I obtained the color by mixing a little bit of magenta with purple. While painting these, I draw the outline first with watercolor and then fill in with paint. To add some dimension to the flower, I add another layer of paint once the base layer has dried. Next up is this blue 5-petal flower, and I first paint in mostly with water using the wet on wet technique, and I drop in some saturated paint at the center of the flower to get that dual tone. I seem to have added a little too much water in the first layer, so I use a tissue to dab and absorb the excess water. Now I'm dabbing with the tip of my brush with saturated paint on it, and as you can see, that paint, when it blooms into the wet base layer, it creates this beautiful ombre effect. The trick is in working quickly, so it's always helpful to have your color palette mixed ahead of time before you begin with the painting, because you need to drop in the paints before the water dries up. So having the paints mixed beforehand helps avoid wasting time and letting the paints dry up in between. Now add some final details at the center of the flower after the paints have completely dried. Now for painting the poppies, I will be mixing colors 17 and 19, which are Sunset and Pitaya of the Tropicals palette, to obtain this beautiful bright red. For the poppies, I paint the petals that are in front first and then later on go on to add the ones that are behind in darker red tones. I also add some flower buds and then finish off with painting the stamens between the petals. And the last flower that I paint in this series will be the lavender. I get the color for the lavender by mixing number 20 Reef, which is the violet shade, and number 22, which is a magenta shade, to get the color for the lavender. And I start with the first quick dabs with the tip of my brush. The color isn't fully saturated for the first layer. I do have a little dilution. Once that is done, I go in with a little more saturated paint this time, adding some shadows, more to the bottom of the tiny petals that we painted earlier. And there you have it, 9 different floral elements painted in watercolors. These are so easy and they take so less time because they're so tiny and cute. And you can use these in making watercolor cards, watercolor compositions, wreaths. I even scanned these flowers, this entire page, and I isolated the floral elements and I made compositions with them, which is what you can see in the thumbnail of this video. I will add that as well at the end of this video so you can see what can be done with them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked it, please don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Have a nice day and see you until next time. Bye.